Jesse, listen. This fly, any fly, cannot be in our lab. It's a problem. It's a contamination, and that is in no way a misuse of the word, okay? So, in terms of keeping our cook clean and our product unadulterated, we need to take this very seriously. Now, do you understand?
So is that your fly saver?
This is a swatter. It happens to work quite well, thank you.
Welcome to Gimmicks, a podcast about the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking, gimmicky episodes of TV, from musicals to distorted dreams to high-concept, low-cost bottle episodes with one very special guest star, a fly. I'm Derek B. Gale.
And I'm just trying to keep my intestines from slipping out of my butt. It's David Arnold.
Yes. And this episode we're talking about is the episode Fly from the series Breaking Bad.
If you're not familiar with Breaking Bad, it is a crime thriller neo-Western black comedy created by X-Files alum Vince Gilligan that ran on AMC from 2008 to 2013. The series stars Bryan Cranston as Walter White, a high school chemistry teacher who is diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer and, due to America's crumbling and insidious for-profit healthcare system, decides to turn to making meth with a former student, Jesse Pinkman, played by Aaron Paul, to secure his family's financial future before he dies, only for Walt to gradually slide farther into the criminal underworld and expose his own deep, dark character flaws.
Sorry for writing that run-on sentence.
Incredible. I made it. It was great, honestly. The series is regarded as one of the greatest TV shows of all time and is frequently compared to other prestige dramas of the 2000s like The Sopranos and Mad Men for inspiring what's referred to as, quote, the golden age of television in the 2010s, prestige dramas and villains who were morally ambiguous protagonists. And I think when we think about the golden age of television, we're also talking about using that full season, Derek. So these are not 8-episode movies anymore. We are really still doing television.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that Breaking Bad also spawned this franchise or Breaking Bad universe with the El Camino sequel film and then the award-winning Better Call Saul spinoff. Derek, what is your experience with Breaking Bad?
I didn't watch it when it first started, but I remember hearing about it. And I mean, I think it was hard to not hear about the dad from Malcolm in the Middle is doing a gritty crime show. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Although I think that it was so funny because I mean, I don't know. Everyone's been like, Hal from Malcolm in the Middle is a badass now. Obviously it's been talked about to death, but I do think it's still funny to look back upon because I think even the early marketing for the show, we had that image of him in his green shirt and his underwear in the desert with a gun, and I think, as much as people would just be like, is he doing a drama? Other people would just be like, this show looks funny.
Yeah.
That funny guy's doing a funny looking show. And then you watch the show, and the thing is, it is pretty funny. I think people sometimes forget. It is actually a very, very funny show a lot of the time. But I didn't watch it at the time, but I was paying attention to it because the end of the first season was during the writer's strike in 2007, 2008. So and this was one of the shows that was affected of being the show is getting good reviews and it's, sucks that it's been cut off after 7 episodes. I wonder what's going on with that. And so I had my eye on it from that, but I didn't actually start watching it, I think, until it was before season 4 started airing, I believe, is when I started it. So
Sure.
Somewhere between season 3 and 4. And then I started watching it live, I think, in season 4 is I believe if I'm remembering my timeline correctly. So it was late in the show's life, but I think that's when a lot of people picked it up because it hit Netflix at a certain point and then everyone kind of binged it for the last couple of seasons. I think is kind of what the general timeline for it tends to be.
Yeah. What's funny, Derek, is that I should have watched the show live because we were watching AMC in 2008. Well, we weren't. Mike was. He was watching Sons of Anarchy on a regular basis live.
Oh, yeah.
The motorcycle gang. He says it's actually a very, very compelling series.
Katie
But-
Seagal.
And then I think we would see ads for Breaking Bad and just like didn't clock it or didn't make it happen, which is, it feels like a big missed opportunity, because then I think when this dropped on Netflix, it was like a guzzle experience of just getting these episodes down because they were so num 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 num, like they were great television.
Yeah, I do think that it's one of those shows, like it wasn't like it was like doing badly for the first couple of years by a wide margin, but it didn't become a cultural touchstone
Right.
until like towards the end of its life, honestly,
Yeah.
which I think is a really cool story, like that I think maybe gets a little bit forgotten now that it has been, you know, elected as being one of the pillars of television of this era. Like it kind of it didn't take a while for it to pick up steam in the sense of success at all, but it took a while to pick up steam for being just like monumentally like across the board, everyone watched it kind of show. It is wild that it took so deep into it. And I do think it kind of spoke to the power that Netflix had in the early 2010s that I think is kind of lost a little bit now, where it's sort of like, you can discover shows late in the life, catch up with them, and then suddenly make them explode into a cultural sensation as they're ending, you know, which had never happened before in TV in that way. You know, things would pick up audiences over time, but not in the way that Breaking Bad like exploded, I think. And I think it's not really a thing that really is going to happen ever again, you know?
You're absolutely right, Terry, because I think 10 years later, this would have sat on the shelf a little bit more because it would have been on AMC Plus divided by 2 or whatever, is like, because there's all these specialty streamers. We've made things that were sort of like everyone goes to the well and you sort of can experience it and discover things a little bit harder. I think that's part of why this golden age of television is so named, is it's sort of this window of DVDs being accessible either from mail-in Netflix or buying them at Barnes and Noble because they really aren't that expensive, and sort of this streaming, what we now think of as a streaming model, but then was just like Netflix, you know?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, because I would think it was the sweet spot, right? Yeah, you have the DVDs, but you still have network and cable television still producing things, and then you have streamers that can just sort of be like, if you don't have cable or you don't have access or you missed it, this is an easy way, and it makes it more accessible to catch up in a way where because then you don't have to worry about spending the money on the DVDs unless you actually are really into it and want to actually keep it. You can try out a show and then get through it and then catch up, then watch it as it's airing on TV, become a fan, then buy the DVDs. Like every aspect of both streaming, airing, broadcast television, and physical media were sort of working in conjunction together with that for these. And then the second that the streaming bubble sort of expanded and then kind of bumped out broadcast and physical media, that's how we end up in the space that we are now, where it's sort of like it's kind of streaming or bust for this stuff. But yeah, this was the perfect sweet spot. And it was perfect for shows like Breaking Bad, where it was like, it worked on an episode by episode basis for broadcast television, but it also works fucking phenomenally on a binge too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that of the shows that I was watching, nothing looked like this. And a lot of that is the New Mexico of it all. And this looks so Southwestern before everything that wanted to represent this world just put like a yellow filter on their Vancouver shoot.
Yeah, I agree. Visually, I mean, you know, I think it's also part of golden age of television that it was sort of like really hammering in that TV episodes could look as good as movies. You know, I think the wrong lessons that a lot of places have taken is that that means that they can be as expensive as movies. And it's like, they can still be on a TV show budget. It's just sort of like really taking the time to figure out good artistic direction for these, or scouting out good locations, or figuring out like really good lighting, or having like guest directors who are really talented, like this episode. You know, I think like you could still do that. And like cinematic television had been a thing, but always like bits and pieces. Like you get some X-Files episodes that were like that. Sopranos was very much like that. But I feel like with Breaking Bad and along with like Mad Men, it's like, oh, basic cable can do this too.
Right.
And if basic cable can do this, then like, why can't anyone? Like, why can't network TV? Why can't your streaming originals and whatever too? So then you start seeing everywhere just being like, maybe we can make our TV shows look like movies. And then they start just throwing too much money at it. And they're sort of like, this one episode costs millions of dollars and it still looks like shit because you can't see anything. It's too dark. Like, you know, so that it's still like Hollywood always does, takes the wrong lessons from it, goes in the wrong direction. But again, this is definitely the sweet spot for like cinematic looking television that still felt like TV at the same time.
So while we're here in the Southwest, Eric, the front is like the car, the back is like a truck. Did you mess around with El Camino?
I did. Yes, I did watch El Camino. I liked it. It's not one, I can't say that it particularly stuck in my memory a lot. I thought it was like a perfectly fine follow-up.
Yeah. It felt like a 2-episode season 6, and then we were done, and it was fine. Like,
yeah. It was nice to see the characters again. I don't know that it really added anything for me, but I do think if you're a fan of like the character of Jesse, it's nice to get like sort of a postscript on him that there wasn't space for in the show. I think that's pretty cool. It was like bonus content. It just felt like bonus content.
Yeah.
I think that Better Call Saul is, I think, generally agreed upon to be the more necessary Breaking Bad addendum and spinoff, and sort of became its own thing. I only watched the first season of Breaking Saul is what I almost called it. I only watched the first season of Better Call Saul. I watched it as it was airing, really liked it. I thought it was great and wanted to keep up, and just fell off of it and never jumped back on that train. But I know that it's really good. I know it's very highly well regarded. Could never be the cultural touchstone that Breaking Bad was, just because of the time that it was airing in, and only just recently wrapped up. I think just like last year, right? I think it was very, very recently finished its run.
I think the most recent Emmys has like that confirmed their shutout, that they never quite made it to an Emmy win, which they always had eyed, and were always nominated, which is a little sad, because there's some great stuff happening in Better Call Saul.
Yeah, I do plan to watch the whole thing. It just, it's just been one of those many shows on my list. But yeah, it is. I mean, I do think if you want a good representation of the way times in television have changed just in the last decade, like how Breaking Bad was treated in pop culture versus how Better Call Saul just sort of, despite being beloved and nominated for many awards, and like, treated as like a great spinoff, it still is nowhere near the cultural touchstone, and sort of feels like it came and went, even though it was around for a very long time. I think that sort of speaks to television culture now.
I think if you've seen neither of these and you are a Michael McKean fan, you owe it to yourself to watch Better Call Saul. It is some of the best Michael McKean, because he is playing. It's dramatic, and he is very, very good. And it's the only sort of thing that you can get if you're a quality comedic actor to get to that level of drama.
Yeah.
Which is kind of all these people are comedians, Derek. That's what is so funny about this series.
I mean, but the shows, that's the thing. It's this and Sopranos, it's the same way too, where I think that like the cultural memory of it is sort of like, it's a gritty crime thriller, and it's very serious and very dark, and it's about badasses who you, I guess, want to be and look up to for some reason. When the reality is just sort of like, they're funny shows. Yeah. And they're specifically about like the worst kinds of people. And the fun of it is that makes it compelling, is that like you can sometimes see yourselves in the worst kinds of people, and you can see humanity in them too. Right. And you can understand their motivations, but then you still see them do horrible things and slide worse and worse into like darkness, because again, that still also speaks to the human condition and how selfish and narcissistic we can be. It's compelling, interesting to watch. So it's always very funny that like some of the worst people like embrace these kinds of shows and sort of just completely ignore any of the context that it exists in, or anything that's happening around, and just sort of like, isn't it badass when Walt shot that guy? Like, it's so cool.
You're absolutely right, Derek, because this is a great series. I would watch it again today, but if you were interacting with me on social media and your profile picture was Heisenberg's drawing, it's an instant no for me. Yeah.
Red flag.
Not interested.
Red flag.
Not interested at all.
It's very unfortunate, because again, the show's very funny. Virtually every single character is telling you that like Walt's a bad guy. Like every single character, the whole world is. Yeah. But if you're watching it, I guess, and you also are a narcissist, you're gonna just be like, yeah, everyone else in the world is wrong. I'm the only one that's right. I'm the only one who's not crazy. Yeah. So, yeah.
You don't live here anymore.
You can never trust a drug addict.
You better pray it's us who catches up to him and not those boys from Juarez.
You either run from things or you face them.
I'm gonna call the police and tell them everything.
This March,
I've lost my family.
two-time Emmy winner Bryan Cranston is back.
I don't appreciate you dragging me back into this.
Breaking Bad, Season 3, Sunday nights at 10, premieres in March, only on AMC.
Well, we're not actually talking about a lot of the cast this time, Derek. This is a small one. We're in a tiny one.
Yeah, yes. The episode we're talking about, it's season 3, episode 10, entitled Fly, a divisive and controversial one we will talk about. The original air date was May 23rd, 2010. The synopsis per IMDb is, there is a fly loose in the lab. Walt and Jesse must do whatever they can to kill it before it contaminates the meth. This episode was written by Sam Catlin and Moira Wally-Beckett. Sam Catlin joined the show as a writer and producer starting in season 2, went on to be a showrunner for the Preacher TV adaptation, actually. I read the comics. I did not watch the TV adaptation, now that I think about it.
I only watched one of them. It was kind of fun.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think it happened. I think that if that had happened like 10 years earlier or whatever, would have nailed it. I think it happened a little bit too late.
That's
People
fair.
had kind of forgotten about Preacher a little bit. Although I was surprised it ran like 4 seasons or something.
Oh my God.
Also, I didn't know this was a thing either. He also just show ran the Colin Farrell led detective show called Sugar that I think is an Apple TV Plus show.
It absolutely is, Derek, because I saw this in the notes and I was like, what the fuck? I love Colin Farrell. And I looked it up and I was like, fucking Apple TV Plus. Put an ad out. Put it on my phone. I would rather be annoyed than not know about your TV series.
Fucking Colin Farrell detective show sounds fun as shit. Like, what
Yeah.
are you talking? It's so annoying. Come on.
Apple. Ugh.
Yeah. The other writer, Moira Wally-Beckett, was a producer starting with this season 3, but had been writing on the show since season 2. She went on to create the Flesh and Bone miniseries and also Netflix's Anne with an E. And heavy hitter on this episode, it was directed by Ryan Johnson.
Hey, I've heard of him.
So we've heard of him. You know, the guy who ruined Star Wars with wokeness, right?
Saved Star Wars, in my opinion.
So at this point in Breaking Bad's history, he has not gone on to the career that we will know for. This is kind of just before he really hits it big. He has directed 2 movies beforehand that I think people will recognize. He directed Brick with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which is a very good noir movie. I really like that movie a lot. He's directed The Brothers Bloom, which I have not seen that one. Are you familiar with that one?
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
It's
okay.
Brick is better. Looper is better. So Brothers
Sure.
Bloom, I feel like it's kind of lost in the middle.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it's after Breaking Bad that he directs Looper and The Last Jedi and the Knives Out movies. So, you know, he explodes after this. But again, for people who want to be like, oh, you fucking destroyed Star Wars or whatever because of women and stuff. Like, you fucking directed on your like Breaking Bad show with your badass drug dealers. So like, what are you talking? Like, pick one, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not the only episode he directed. He goes on in season 5 to direct the episodes 51 and then Ozymandias, which is like considered like the best episode of the show ever. So, you know, which makes sense that he did this episode, showed his cred, and then would go on to direct, you know, really, really important episodes of the final season.
Yeah, and it's funny because there was some scheduling mix-up for Ozymandias, and it was the creator, Gilligan, instructed the writer and producer, Beckett, to pick a director, and she was like, I loved working with Ryan Johnson. Let's bring him back. And when he got the script, he was like, are you sure you want me to do this? Like, I directed your weird fly episode. And they said yes. And it, as you mentioned, it is the top rated episode of the series. People point to it as an amazing episode of television, bar none. It's really, really incredible.
Mm-hmm. So the gimmick of this episode that we're talking about, there's a few things. I think the main thing, the thing that's known for, is that it's like both a bottle episode and a chamber piece. So if you want to know about bottle episodes, we very recently did an episode on the Outer Limits, the controlled experiment episode of Outer Limits, because that was sort of where the invention of bottle episode was. And that's where we really talk about the sort of difference between how people define bottle episodes, you know, and that a chamber piece isn't always a bottle episode, but it can be, and it often is. And the main difference is that like a bottle episode has to be shot on a budget, and chamber piece is specifically something that's like more constrained, that is set to like one location, and that often, like this episode, feels a little bit claustrophobic, you know?
Yeah. But I think it's so funny now that we've watched and talked about Controlled Experiment, that was so frenetic with movement and energy, and this feels so calm. And that's why I feel like this really speaks to a chamber piece even more than some of the other bottle episodes that we've talked about, because it chooses to use the strengths of what a limited budget gives you to make this more about characters interacting with each other. And it is so very cool.
Yeah, I think this is a great episode to point to if you want to describe exactly what makes a chamber piece unique, because it isn't just the location thing. You're right. It is like, it's the fact that it's 2 episodes in a location. I mean, 2 episodes. It's 2 characters in a location that really are mostly just talking.
Yep.
Like the bits of action, there's bits of action sprinkled in there, but the bulk of the episode is just 2 people talking to each other.
Yeah.
And yet you can still do so much with that on its own.
Yeah, there's so much tension in this. It's so great.
Mm-hmm.
I went into a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I wanted to take us a little bit further south, Derek, to Colombia. There is a Spanish language recreation of Breaking Bad called Metastasis, which is like metastasize. It's playing on his cancer. This series is like a shot-for-shot remake of Breaking Bad. Gilligan's involved, but more like Blessing involved, not day-to-day involved. Every episode is shot in 1 to 2 days. The budget is fractional compared to the US budget. And Gilligan is even quoted as saying that it inspired him and made him feel a little sheepish that they took so much money and shooting hours that they did to make Breaking Bad. Of course, like, emulating art that's made and making art from scratch are 2 very, very different things. But I watched the Fly episode called La Mosca, which just means the fly. And it's what really struck me as being so funny is that there's so many other characters in this episode. Like, Skylar's in it. The 2 like deadbeat kids are in it. Not kids, they're like adults, but you know,
they feel like kids.
Yeah, the one who played Wedge in Final Fantasy Remake. So they're in it. Gus is in it. He has a whole plot line, but everything from Walt and Jesse is still in there, and it's kind of incredible. They even have Walt's fall. It's just done. I don't do stunts, but I can recognize that falling onto something and then rolling onto another thing and then rolling onto another thing is probably a little easier than falling off a big thing straight to the ground, which is what we are going to talk about later. This guy fell onto a vat that fell onto a table and then fell onto the floor, which was probably cheaper, which is great. But shot for shot, it's the same episode.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. I think if anyone has some time, they're all on YouTube. You could watch 5 minutes of this and be like, wow, yeah, that's Breaking Bad.
That is so funny. Wow.
Yeah. I also love that Walt's character is named Walter Blanco.
I fucking love that. That's so good.
Incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
I think the other thing that's fun, and we've done a couple episodes on gimmicks where they're calling back to a piece of media that exists in the world. But this, like, Breaking Bad is kind of a Moby Dick story, and nowhere is that more apparent than when they are hunting a creature that eludes them. And so in a lot of ways throughout Breaking Bad, Walt is Ahab, Jesse is Starbuck, and here they're just chasing the white whale that is this fly that really is a symbol of all the other things that have wronged you in your life. Starbuck, famously in the novel, just wants to get paid, just wants to do his job. Ahab is the one who's like, I got to get me vengeance because it took me leg. That's, I don't know, actually, Moby Dick was a long time ago. I don't think they talked that way, but whatever. So I don't know. It's just kind of fun. I love when like mainstays of narrative come back, and I just think it's really fun that this episode like leaned into it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really fun. I mean, I don't know that it's like as a parent, but you're right. Yeah, that's kind of it's a fun idea for a gimmick episode on its own, like especially, and I think it goes really well with a chamber piece because it's such a specific goal that a character has that, like, I need to catch this goddamn thing.
Yeah.
That is a representation of all the things that I'm going through internally.
Right.
Like, and that's a great thing to place in one singular location where you can't escape it because there's no way, because it only is going to feed in the obsession. And also, like, makes it good for TV because if you want to compress it into a short time period, there's limited places where the thing that's being chased can go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's, I never really thought about that when watching the episode, but it's like so obvious when you spell it out, but I do think it almost gets a little bit lost in everything else. But you're right. That's so clearly there. And that's such a rich story to have.
Yeah.
And I think keeps something like this really focused. And it's, probably a good basis for any chamber piece if you're trying to do a chamber piece, to be honest.
Yeah, I really love it. And Derek talked about this too, but like, I love whenever a drama, and I know that a lot of conversation happening in TV right now is like, what are genres? But we can say this was pretty squarely in the drama category, but there is some laugh out, like just truly bonkers laugh out loud comedy in this. I'm talking about when they go to hit each other, Jesse putting on this gas mask that makes him look fly-like, and Walt catching it and doing almost this double take. There's a little bit of goofy fun, and it feels very Johnson-y, just truly and honestly.
The show is, some of my favorite moments in the show are the comedic ones, like Walt throwing the pizza on the roof of the house, like shit like that. There's like weird stuff like that. Yeah. And this episode definitely hammers that in, I think, in a really interesting way. And I think that, again, it does make it, we've talked about bottle shows and chamber pieces sometimes feeling like one act plays, and I think that this episode gets to that in, it's full of ups and downs, right? Like it has your soft, slow, dramatic, introspective conversations, which is the character monologuing. It also has two characters hitting each other with a stick and falling off of a railing, like it's got it all.
Yeah. And I don't know, there are moments in this that I think are so well created and tense that comedy helps even more. And we'll get to them in our beat by beat, but like some secrets almost get revealed that could cause violence to happen to Walt.
Right.
Walt at the end of the episode lays down some pretty high stakes for Jesse. I think that, this gets discussed in like filler conversations as well. And we've had a lot of conversation that filler is this like bogus word.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even work for this, because this actively is important for the series. If you don't have this episode, you are missing out on critical character development and information that is conveyed in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, we'll talk about the legacy of this episode.
Great.
Let's start with some of the making of this one.
Let's do it.
It's a bottle episode, tale as old as time. So like many bottle episodes, both good and bad, this episode was the result of the series having budgetary restrictions. If you watch the show, it looks like an expensive show, the way that they use location and stuff like that. So I think it is visually rich because it costs a lot of money to make. But they realized that they were going to be unable to afford the $25,000 to $35,000 needed to move production trucks to a new location for an episode. So Vince Gilligan was quoted as saying, "We were hopelessly over budget." So again, Breaking Bad, hot show on TV, they still were working under constraints. They weren't getting millions of dollars per episode at this point. And this episode is sort of to make up for that lack of budget, keeping it into a very specific one set. I guess there's two locations technically in the episode, but two sets that are pre-existing, predominantly only taking place in one pre-existing set.
Right. Well, and I love the constant reference that everyone gives is these production trucks, which I think is just the straw on the back, right? Because it's sort of like there was a budget, and then the thing that really put us over is that to get people places, we just couldn't afford it. Like at the end of the day,
that's so funny.
We just couldn't move people. And to imagine art to be bogged down by such, not operations are important. I'm not trying to say anyone that your job isn't important, but it seems so mundane to be a thing to stop you. That I just think it makes this story even more compelling when we talk about this giant series and like nobody could get a truck to move some background from one place to another.
Funny. It's so funny. Yeah. But I think what's, and the other thing about like what I love often about bottle episodes is like when they're able to make it into a piece of art, and the people take it as a challenge and then sort of utilize that to sort of elevate their series. And I think that's how Vince Gilligan has talked about it. Like he said in an AV Club interview that he says that even if the financial realities didn't enter into it, he felt like as showrunner that there still should be like a certain shape and pace to each season, which is something that you often hear showrunners talking about when they're looking overall. It's sort of like you don't want every episode to be the same. You don't want to like front load or back load all the dramatic stuff. You do kind of want to intersperse and have some sort of highs and lows in terms of energy throughout the season. So he says the really high highs that you try to get at the end of a season, the big dramatic moments of action and violence, the big operatic moments you're striving for, I don't think would land as hard if you didn't have the moments of quiet that came before them. The quiet episodes make the tenser, more dramatic episodes pop even more than they usually would just by their contrast. Yeah. I think it's very true. That's why the concept of like a breather episode exists. If you have kind of a calm before the storm, it makes the storm feel that much more dramatic, And I think especially with this episode, it takes place in a point in the series. It's like, right at the midpoint of the show. And I think it is a point when it's sort of like a bunch of shit has happened in the first 2.5 seasons that now the two main characters have a second to just pause, reflect on, talk about it a little bit, and then kind of move them along, or if not move them along internally, at least get the audience to fully level set and understand where they are at respectively in regards to the many situations they put themselves in. So then you feel more prepared and ready for all the bullshit they're going to go through coming up next.
Yeah.
I think you need that sometimes, because otherwise the characters can kind of get lost and you kind of forget, like, wait, is he feeling guilty about this? Was he mad about that? Did he remember that he did this? Did he know that he did this? Like, it's nice to just be like, have it laid out for you in a dramatic way of where everyone is at mentally.
Well, it almost serves as like the best analogy I can come up with is like we're reading the characters' journals, because we need this moment of like understanding where their heads are at, because maybe they've gotten there, but we can't see it unless there's dialogue or action to convey that to us. There's no other way for us, the audience, to get that. And this kind of episode gives you a chance to really dig in deep about that. And again, I don't think you know Walt until you watch this 45 minutes of television.
Yeah. You don't know. Is he, this is kind of a definite point when you sort of like know for sure, like, this man does have a soul, but in a way,
it's heavy.
Does
it's
that
heavy.
make it better? But does it make it better or worse that a man with a soul who is capable of feeling guilt still ends up doing a lot of the horrible things he does after this?
Yeah.
Because he only gets worse. And I do think you can always point back to this one. It's sort of like, we're not dealing with like a fucking total sociopath or a total psychopath or something. This episode tells you that's not the situation. This is a very deeply flawed, hurt man that is just that is reflecting on how fucked up his life is and how responsible he is for it. So then when you see him doing monstrous things later on, I think you can sort of judge him a little bit better, just being like, so you do know what you're doing is wrong. You're emotionally capable of knowing what you're doing is wrong and doing it anyway, which means you can either hate him or at very least appreciate him more, which I think is really interesting and very important to have that and hold that.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Gilligan also said in a Vulture perspective, just another quote that I like, he says, we love it when people quote lines back to us like, I am the danger. But to us, writing is also about between the lines, the cinema, wordless communication. And you get that a lot in this episode where like half of it's like monologues. The other half is just silence and just people doing things in action and looks, you know?
And we're going to talk about it, Derek, but my favorite things in the world is cameras in weird places doing weird things. Oh, The Fly gives it to me. I think at one point in time, Rian Johnson is just like, shake the camera a lot. Just shake it a lot. And brilliant. Just great. It tells a story. Yeah.
I also watched a clip from a podcast that Bryan Cranston was on, and he regards this episode highly. It was a Pardon My Take podcast in 2020. The host just straight up asked him, "Did you think the Fly episode was boring?"
Ouch, Derek. Ouch.
And Cranston was extremely diplomatic about it. He was like, no, I liked that episode. And then the host like walked it back and was sort of like, yeah, I know a lot of people really hated it and I thought it was okay. It's like, oh my God, fuck off, dude.
Also,
but then
I'm sorry, even if you didn't enjoy this is like a buffet for an actor. Are you kidding me? Of course he loved this episode.
Well, clearly it was a very stupid person on that podcast. Sorry, Pardon My Take podcast.
I wish I could read for Walt White on this episode. Like this is a fun gig to act, truly, Derek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, they even talk about it on that podcast that it's like a lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. And Cranston was sort of like, yeah, I agree. Like, if you elicit both highly positive and highly negative responses, like that means you probably did something right. You know? And he says that it created anxiety with the viewers because we kept it so small. You're constantly waiting for the story to open up and it never does. Yeah. And that's probably a reason a lot of people hate this episode, in addition to just feeling like it doesn't move the plot, whatever that means. I do think it's like because it's constantly like sort of edging you towards something big happening, then you never get that catharsis. The tension is, you end the episode with the tension still being up and no one's actually revealed their big secrets and no one's actually like shot anyone else or anything. Then it's just sort of like, I think the benefit of that is that you are now at the same level the characters are at, where it's sort of like, oh, every single day they're walking around with this level of tension, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And every day that it never does, that lack of catharsis is actually driving them crazy. They don't want to actually get killed, but by always fearing that they might get killed at any given moment or their secrets might get exposed at any given moment, of course it's going to drive them insane and make them do horrible things because of that tension constantly on top of them.
There are people out in the world who have eaten their coworker's lunch out of the refrigerator, and you still work with that person every day and you've never revealed that secret. Now imagine working with that person every day and you killed the love of their life and blamed it on their drug abuse that person thinks they're responsible for. Now imagine going to work every day with that person. And if you're okay with that, you need therapy, just like a little bit.
Yeah. Two things I think that are very controversial about this show. One of them, it's just an interesting tidbit, but I think leads into like weird Breaking Bad fan base bullshit. This is the only episode to not feature Anna Gunn, who plays Skylar White, Walt's wife, which... I mean, sure it goes without saying that we're pro Anna Gunn, pro Skylar.
But Skylar did nothing wrong.
Lots of straight men on the internet are not, which again, it's sort of like, then why do you hate this episode? They're your most hated person in the world isn't in it. So you love it.
Yeah. I love Skylar. I think if I have one criticism about this episode, no Skylar.
Yeah. It does have her voiceover. She's the one who's singing the
true.
Mockingbird song in the beginning.
That's
it's
true.
like archive footage. So she didn't actually do anything for it, but she's technically, her presence is there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's just, I don't know if we need to, if we need to litigate that. It's just like people are awful about this character. It's Anna Gunn has written about like the hate she received for it. Lots of people have written about the bizarre misogyny of like this woman who's trying to keep her family together while she finds out her husband is a fucking like crime lord drug dealer. And apparently she's the villain for keeping him from his fun.
Yeah.
Being a crime lord, it's just straight up misogyny. And like, again, millions of pieces written about it. I don't know if we need to relitigate it. But.
I promise to give Skylar and Anna Gunn some time in the future. Are You My Mother? But I will just say, because I read some of the same things you're reading, one of the things I think is kind of funny about this, just because of we're not in a pre-internet world, but I don't think we're in a world where like actors are reading the internet constantly. So it's funny when like journalists will ask them about it and they're like, no, like Skylar's the best character. Like who would not think Skylar's the best character? And they're all, it's not naivety. I think they're all viewing it as like a dramatic product and not as like just consumerism that some of us look at media like. And it's kind of funny when Anna Gunn talks about all the support she got from her coworkers, that was like keeping her uplifted. And that's so hard to like think about in retrospect of being like, the only thing I had to retreat to were like my coworkers.
Well, it's so weird because I don't think if you go into a show like Breaking Bad, you're not expecting there to be like a big internet fan base for it in the way that like genre shows would be. Like this isn't a Star Trek or like a comic book show or whatever. Like it's a fucking like weird like art house crime thriller, like I don't, none of these actors are going expecting there to be a big internet presence at all. So the fact that there is a fandom to deal with whatsoever, I'm sure was weird and they weren't prepared for, and especially not when it's just sort of like a we hate women fan base,
Skylar, walk in that pool is what I say. Walk in that pool, girl.
The other fans and people are stupid about this show sometimes thing. This isn't a subjective thing. This is just on the internet. Everyone pretty much agrees this is just the most controversial episode of the series, which is fucking stupid. It's frequently highly regarded. People like us, or sort of who actually like television as a medium, or sort of like, yeah, this is a fucking great singular episode of TV. Yeah. But you'll find all over the place, including Breaking Bad wikis and Reddits and shit like that, people just being like, it's filler, it's a waste of time, nothing happens, it's just people talking, nothing big happens. There's an AV Club roundtable from 2011, so right when the show was airing, right after this episode, where an AV Club rater ranked it on a best show, worst episode roundtable as like the worst episode, an episode they absolutely hated. They're like, Walt doesn't act cool, he's normally a badass and he sucks and he's annoying and nothing happens. It's so boring.
Wow, that is a person who has never stayed up 3 or 4 days in a row right there talking. This is Walt sleep deprived, and that is an important thing to say.
There's a lot of AV Club raters that have gone on to do amazing things. It was a name from AV Club in an era that I was reading AV Club all the time. Did not recognize that name at all. So
bummer.
Sorry, girl.
Sorry about it. This is the thing I really liked, Derek, though. You looked it up. This has the lowest rating on IMDb of the series, right?
Yes.
Just under an 8. And when I saw your note on this, I went to look it up, and you're right. It's like a 7.9. And then I went, is 7.9 bad? Because it seems pretty high to me, but wow, there is some grade inflation on IMDb. Because I went back to some things that I was like, well, this wasn't a great episode of television. They were like scoring like 8.3. And I was like, okay, well, interesting.
But and I think it speaks a lot for Breaking Bad. Everything is always above an 8. And this is a below an 8 lowest rated one. And I think also it's got an extraordinarily high number of ratings. I think more than most of the, like, I think maybe like the finale or whatever probably has more, but like from the scope of the show for an in-between episode, it has more than most other episodes of the show, which speaks to people feeling strongly about it one way or another, enough that they feel like they have to go to IMDb to rate this episode and be like, I need everyone to know that it's the best, or I need everyone to know that it's the worst. I think that just speaks to the response that it got, you know, both positive and negative. And I think it also just speaks to how weird people are with chamber pieces like this. I don't know. And I mean, you still get that. You get like the Last of Us episode, you know, with Nick Offerman in it, right? Like it always is something that's sort of like, as soon as you do something slightly different, people
want
just
to talk.
Normal TV aren't going to get it. It just always blows my mind when it's like something like Breaking Bad, which is never really very normal to begin with. Like that was sort of the appeal of it, I thought, but I don't know.
I need to be better about rating things on IMDb. I'm realizing I need to be a proactive voice in this.
I've never rated anything on it.
I only did it recently, Derek, and you know what it was for? It was for True Calling. I sure did go into every single one of those episodes and 10-star. I did not 10-star every episode. There were some that were not worth a 10-star. But I sure did. I signed up. I finally signed up for an IMDb login just so I could rate episodes of True Calling.
Well, before we get into the beat by beat, we do have something kind of cool. We did have a guest for this episode that came on to do a fun little interview. This is writer and director Daniel Roemer, who created the Chaser series on Amazon Prime. So it's a science fiction television series that you can watch on Amazon that he created. And he has a lot of really interesting things to say about making art on a budget, using iconic location stuff like Breaking Bad, and talks about his connections and appreciation for Breaking Bad as well. David did that interview with him. We have edited it for clarity and length, but I think it's a really fun interview, and it's always fun to hear someone from the industry talk about television and making television in the way that we do. So enjoy that interview, and then we will be back with the beat by beat.
Hi friends, I am joined now by Daniel Roemer, the director and writer of the science fiction series Chaser. Daniel, welcome to Gimmicks.
Thank you.
You are bringing like 20 plus years of filmmaking experience into this conversation. So I've got to go back a little bit and say, how did you get started being a filmmaker?
Way back, my very first memories of just any media related thing was recording sound effects on my dad's cassette recorder machine. It was like one of those old Radio Shack, and it had that little mic, and the chords are going down. And I just remember making sound effects and music, and I would spit all over the place while I was doing it. So you got to watch out. And that was my very first. But like visual wise, I would probably be maybe a year later, around 4 years old. I was ice skating with my family. And my dad brought a Super 8 film camera and would film us. And then when he brought it back home for us to watch, he'd reverse the footage and do it slow-mo and just manipulate the footage. And we were just like, wow, this is so cool. And so that was like the first thing where I was just like, what is this?
Wow. Daniel, since 4 years of age, you have been messing around with filmmaking. You were sort of like, this is your destiny then, I guess. Like, you can't get away from it.
I guess, yeah. It's your destiny chases you whether you like it or not. But
I wonder if we might talk a little bit about that and the series that you worked on. So, okay, but like that's not the bulk of your career is ice skating back when you were 4 years old. Like you are a legit short film maker. Like this is what you did for a while.
I think the first thing I ever did that seemed somewhat of note was in high school. I did short film and I really put a lot of work into it. I built, I had like a 20-foot jib that I built, so it
Wow.
could be these craning shots and, tracks and dolly, all kinds of crazy stuff. And um, the film was very like experimental, and I showed it to a friend of mine, John, and he completely didn't get it, and it crushed me because
Oh
at the
no.
time, I'm a new filmmaker. I didn't know what was good, if I was any good, and so I literally like threw it in the trash can. And it was like one of those stories where your teacher pulls it out, and he pulled out of the trash can and he mailed it into this like statewide contest for artists, and it ended up winning the entire show.
Oh shit.
It was like tens of thousands of entries, and it got like the first prize and everything. And that's when I was like, it was like the first time I was like, whoa, like what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, and you found like people who get like art at a higher level.
Right.
Nothing
No
against your
offense to
buddy.
John, but
Nothing against John here. Like we love
yeah,
John, but Gimmicks is all about the episode that stands out. So we're squarely in your camp, Daniel, and John has all the rest of the episodes of the season to pay attention to.
right. I got to give him props. He's an engine guy. He's like a little baby genius with fixing carburetors and engines, and I have no idea how to do that. So.
I love that.
Casey sees this, yeah.
Here's the deal: society needs all types, so we really all got to work together.
Exactly.
So today we're going to be talking about Breaking Bad and the chamber piece / bottle episode Fly. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about Chaser. This show came out this past spring on Amazon Prime. Congratulations, such a huge accomplishment. And it centers on the life of Eddie, a film editor who discovers the ability to use the same talents he has editing film to edit the events of the past 24 hours. What was sort of your inspiration to writing this story?
It goes back to a short film I did around 2004, and that was called The Select Fit. And that was actually played a character in there where I would rewind these two angels. So they were trying to give me this like, oh, will help you in life. This is wisdom and world wisdom. And what the character did was he rewound what they said and recut it into like a very self-serving sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And then he played it back, and the whole thing like jumped back in a whole completely different way. So that was the gist of it. And I thought that was a fun concept to explore. So I wanted to use that. And the film did really well. The short film, probably the most successful short that I did. So not only was it something that was really up my alley, but I thought, okay, this won't hurt, it being based on something that was pretty successful. So
yeah, I love that. And what made TV sort of the medium that works for this? I mean, it's plenty of story, but I could imagine a world in which you really like spent nights sweating your brow off to try to get this down to a feature length, and doing it as a feature. To me, it works so much better as television. Did you kind of always envision this to be told in this serialized format?
No, because not just the first draft, the entire script was a feature, and then when we shot it as a feature, and it wasn't till post that we realized the nature of the story and the way it breathed and the characters needed more room. So we actually I took it to LA. I have a friend out there who's an incredible editor, and he was able to take a look at the footage because I had to like show him all the takes, and we really poured over it, and we literally could not get it down below 2.5 hours.
Ooh.
And I knew that just,
that's heavy. That's a heavy film.
It's a long film. I mean, if it's like a high action movie or something like that, or Apocalypse Now or something, you can get away with 2. But I mean, a film like this, that's not going to happen. So we went back to the drawing board, and I had some really good help.
I want to pivot to Breaking Bad real quick. This was a critically acclaimed series on AMC from 2008, 2013. What's your background and experience with the series Breaking Bad? Did you watch this when it was on? Did you catch it later?
Yeah, I watched it right when it was coming out, which is rare for me because usually I like late on the bandwagon for stuff. But yeah, I remember actually there was one year I was actually living in New York, and they would show live episodes at this bar that was nearby.
Oh, cool.
Never had that happen before, where people only in like, East Williamsburg, Brooklyn, would people go to a bar to watch Breaking Bad, but it was so fun, it was just such oh man, I just remember the thrill of that, ups and downs of that whole series.
That's so cool. Did the series inspire any of your work, or even Chaser itself?
I wouldn't say directly, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really good writing. I would say every time you watch something that's great, it gets input in your brain somewhere. So I'm sure it was in there somewhere, but I wouldn't say directly.
Like directly. Yeah. I mean, you've spoken on other podcasts that you have inspiration of everything from like Dukes of Hazzard to Donnie Darko. It's just incredible. Yeah. Love that. But it's actually really clear to me that your style is sort of unique in the marketplace. Like this isn't someone like your work isn't something that I see on a regular basis on TV, which is what made watching Chaser so exciting. Are there any other like high concept episodes of television that like do stand out for you or do feel inspirational from you from the past?
Well, I don't know about high concept. I was watching The Bear recently. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I tend to like stories where you see a world that you don't know yet. You maybe know a little bit. It really interests me to see the intricacies of like a kitchen, like not just like in passing when the real story is happening, but no, that is the story. Because I like geek out on it. It's almost like watching the documentary.
Well, one of the things that I when I was thinking about like what are the parallels between the work that you've done here with Chaser and the Breaking Bad series, one of the things that I noticed was like you use the Midwest much in a way that Breaking Bad used Albuquerque in the Southwest. Like first episode, second episode, we're still over in LA, but once we get to Ohio, there's so much Ohio. So there's so much Midwest that I think is just integral to this story and the visual narrative that you're telling. Did you film this in Ohio?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good note because I think people can feel it through osmosis, just like in Breaking Bad. There's a different quality about it. We're so used to being, seeing the same images over and over from LA and sometimes New York. It's just like, oh, okay, they're driving through those windy roads in the mountains again. It was really fun finding the locations. Rob Hemmick, he was our location scout. He also did multiple other things, including being our main composer.
That's awesome.
He found some great spots, and that's one of the things I think I'm most proud about for the visuals of that story.
Yeah, I also think that it's just it tells a surrealistic story a lot differently when you base it in Middle America. I think it just gets a much different vibe that is different than anything we've seen. Honestly, though, I would take in LA or New York. Gimmick spends a lot of time in Vancouver with the episodes we end up covering. You might be surprised to hear, Daniel.
Interesting. Okay.
We're just always in Vancouver. I've seen the same street in Vancouver 100 times. Oh, I love that. When we talk about this episode, we're talking about a chamber piece. And one of the reasons that folks deploy a chamber piece or a bottle episode is because budget is an issue. Derek and I had a chance to go real in depth on bottle episodes by going back to the first documented bottle episode from The Outer Limits with Controlled Experiment. It was a blast of a time for us to go back that far. But as a director, I've got to imagine and a creator, like you're sort of doing it all, there's got to be some frustration about the idea of the art you want to make and then the chain that holds you back, which is the budget you have to spend to get the art done.
Exactly. Yeah. And the funny thing is this specific story, the first drafts of it were intensely trying to make a very small film. I knew the locations I wanted to shoot at, and there was only a few of them. And I really just wanted to shoot it for practically nothing. And I was like, and I'll be damned if I do what I always do, which is it keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's exactly what happened. And it always happens. So, what else can I do? And then at the end, you're trying to make an Apocalypse Now size movie, for like the budget of Rushmore, you know.
Right.
So
Rushmore, good pull. I do love in television when this happened, and it happened here with Fly and Breaking Bad. You know, they famously didn't have enough money to like move actors around to filming locations, and they were like, "Fuck it, we got this, we got the lab. Let's just put everything in there." And we see it all the time. But television's also famous for like doing this and then doing exactly what you said, which is that the project gets huge. We've talked about X-Files' Ice, for example, was supposed to be this contained bottle episode, and then the budget just exploded.
And there's something nice. Well, think a movie like Saw or something. They could do whatever they want and shoot that wherever they want now. I mean, maybe the first one, but like they have such a huge amount of success from that.
Right.
The challenge is to actually fight the success to keep it small. And at some point you just ask yourself, is it even worth it? Like what is the end result that I want to create? Is it just to prove to everyone that I can shoot everything in a phone booth or something? Right. Or is it, it's like turns into a gimmick?
Yeah, hey, it's what we're here to talk about. So sometimes we get to talk about bottle episodes because they were just up against a wall and they had no other choice, which was The Outer Limits. And sometimes we get to talk about them because they're a little bit artistic, like Rian Johnson directing this episode and doing the most with it. And sometimes it's like gray area in between. It was a budget reason. They didn't have vans and you still wanted to make cool art. So it's kind of fun to talk about chamber pieces / bottle episodes.
I think it's a fun challenge too, because you're really testing your brain and your creativity as a filmmaker in ways that you would never go.
Yeah.
So it's almost like pushing, like if you had a car and you're really testing it out on a racetrack, how fast can you get it?
Right.
Or what, how can you make those turns at the max? And it can really reveal to you your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. Cause I mean, like that's sort of our job as artists, is to like figure out who we are. Like it's all kind of therapy in the end, right?
Yeah.
Like it's creation, it's enjoyment for others, but we're also trying to answer this like question of like, who am I in this world?
For me, ultimately, I'd like the end result just to be as most powerful as possible. And if that means if you don't have enough money to make something beyond shooting something all in one room, then awesome, If you do have more money and it ends in a more powerful result to use the amount that you have, I would say go with that.
Yeah. So I do want to keep drawing some comparisons between Chaser and this episode, Fly from Breaking Bad, because one of the things that this episode is really praised for is the intense tension between Walt and Jesse that is throughout the episode. It's the dialogue, it's the characters feeling trapped that really turns that up to 11. And one of the things that I noticed while watching Chaser was that the series really has these same intense moments between two characters. And it really is almost every pairing of the four leads at some point in time. I guess Gar and Fran never really have their chance to have conflict with each other, but everyone else, every other combination seems to have existed in it. What are the challenges in building that kind of tension for a story?
I think it's all about stakes.
Yeah.
Whether that be clearly written in the script or whether that's something that the actor finds in their own work on their character and the specific scene. Every scene has to have high stakes in some fashion. And that's something recently, because I just played a bit part for a friend in his short film he was doing. And I took a lot of acting classes when I was back in, I went to USC for a few years, and my professor there, Professor Joe Hacker, he was the best professor and teacher I had ever had. He changed my life.
Oh, cool.
And one of the things that he would always talk to us about was, make sure that the scene that you're in has stakes and clear stakes. And if as high as you can get them is the best if you can. And going into just playing that part that I recently did, once I brought that element in, it was like the whole thing just changed. And it's like, wow, okay, now the scene's actually about something. So most of the time you don't even really know what it's about when you first read it. Eventually you figure it out.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to really talk to you about in this episode, and I was so excited to have a filmmaker on to get some thoughts from, is that this episode really makes some choices about how to shoot the lab. A set that we're vaguely familiar with if you've been watching this at a Brooklyn bar for the last 3 seasons, right? We know the lab. I guess the lab wasn't there all 3 seasons, but we know the lab, and we're shooting this like it's 12 Angry Men. Like, we're up high, we're down low, we're straight on when the tension needs to be elevated. Johnson really directs this with some forced perspective that we haven't used before, and nerds like Derek and I and you are probably super aware of this all the time when we're watching things because we just can't get enough of it. But some of this is like an unconscious connection of the viewer and how they feel about the art, right? Like that's why we do it.
Yeah, it always blows my mind of how many more miniature setups there are in life. If you just sit your butt down on the ground, take your camera out, instead of wandering all around and trying to get a good shot, no, just sit down, get comfortable, and just take your camera out. Like, you can just find a myriad of unbelievable angles. Just, zoom in, if you have a phone that has different lenses on it, zoom in, different movements. I got the chance to do that recently because I'm working on a kind of a small side project where I had to use my phone on some stuff. Man, the footage just came out great. And it was because I was just limited to a very small area. So I definitely see that from the Breaking Bad standpoint is, you can create a whole mini universe within a very small amount of actual space.
Yeah. I love that. I've got to say that my husband and I recently went back to the States and we met with his grandmother, and she took all of her photos from down here, like on the middle of her chest. And I discovered new things too. It was an additional chin that I have now. Not all discoveries are great, Daniel, is what I'll say. So I want to talk a little bit about the other parallel that I found, which is that Fly is ostensibly about this like housefly that's made its way into the methamphetamine lab, and Walt is obsessed over it. In a way, it's like it's his white whale. So we're doing like this Moby Dick allegory, and Eddie's got a little bit of this as well. He is chasing after something that is really about control in his life to me. And I wondered, like, were there symbols that you used in Chaser to represent Eddie's longing, Eddie's goals, that what he was seeking, in the way that Breaking Bad used the fly in this episode to represent Walt sort of hunting for his answer?
There's some stuff we use with color.
Yeah.
But this is weird. Someone actually pointed this out. There's other films I've done, I've used the same thing. I didn't realize it wasn't on purpose, which is the color yellow is used quite a bit. So whenever Eddie's getting something that's, moving on up in life, like the yellow car that he gets, the color yellow is often used. I had a short film in 1999 called The American Wet Dream. And that one is the same thing. It had like a yellow car in it, yellow motorcycle, yellow birthday cake. Anytime he bought something that was making his life better.
No, I mean, the symbolism of using a color to represent his like longing and success, or what he first evaluates as success. I think that's really cool. That's smart. So Daniel, before I let you go, you teased it a little bit, but like there's more to come of Chaser, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was, left off on a cliffhanger, not to give a spoiler, but if anyone is tempted to go watch it, there's definitely something at the end that you'll wait to see that. In the future, yes, we are developing ideas right now, and we're starting to shop to get picked up by a studio or streamer.
That's really cool. So if folks have a rich uncle, now's the time to connect with you.
I think right now, Chaser season 1 is just starting to, lift off, and it's a fun time to be on board. And sometimes it's like when there's a new series, you want to be part of something, and whether you want to call that like a cult following, or a lot of my favorite movies like Donnie Darko or Big Lebowski, they have their own communities to them, and it's really fun. And I always thought, man, that would be great if obviously you want to have a huge wide appeal, but to have like a core community that really loves what you're working on.
Well, I really appreciate your time and perspectives here that have really set us up to talk in depth about Fly. Derek and I are going to be locking ourselves in the lab to do the beat by beat on the rest of the episode. But Daniel, where can folks find more about you and what else you are working on out on the internet?
Easiest way to find me is just through Instagram, and my handle is DF Roemer, Roemer. And from there, you can find all the links to where to tune in to Chaser, and then all my other, I have a link tree that has all my other stuff, website, IMDb, etc.
Nice. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for your time, and we will jump into the episode. All right. Well, we start this episode with a close-up on a fly, and I forgot all about this. We are close to a fly. I don't know what else to say, Derek. Like, this was very close up while we've got Anna Gunn singing "Hush, Little Baby."
I think flies, when they're close up, are really pretty. Is what I think.
Oh, wow!
I think that they're really cool. I mean, I think insects when they're close up are really like beautiful. It's just we only see them from far away. And then our like biological impulses to say, ew, that's gross. But like when you're looking like very, very hyper close up, like flies are like, I think they're gross, but I think they're really colorful and like have so many interesting like lines on them, if that makes sense. Like just like they're just like, I don't know, they're like a well-designed creature artistically, I feel like. So it's kind of cool to see all those close-ups. It was a really weirdly wet fly. I didn't really understand that. There's a lot of water droplets on this dude. I'm not really sure what's going on there. And honestly, I don't understand hearing Skylar's singing over. Oh wait, no, I do. It's what Walt is referencing later on. Never mind. It literally in this moment just clicked with me why they play that at the beginning of the episode. Only just now, because I had no fuck. It's like, what the fuck does this have to do with like what Walt is going through? No, never mind. It actually makes 100% sense. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Well, and I just have to imagine that part of Walt's insomnia, because he's awake and then it's 6 a.m. and he's awake. This is like he is consumed with this memory and this thought. And it is only through the conversation with Jesse, this sometimes student, sometimes antagonist, sometimes mentee, every role you could imagine between these two men, that draws it out of him like a therapist would draw poison out of you, that he realizes it. So this was really working on a subliminal and subconscious level for me.
Yeah.
But then,
no, that works. That works. Yeah. It's a really striking opening because literally it's just that song and the fly, and then it cuts to credits. Yeah. And then you cut to Walt having insomnia after that. Yep. And I mean, the fact that this whole episode starts like that already, it's like, yep, we're in a gimmick episode. Fucking love that shit.
Banger. Anything to say about the opening credits? I have a strange memory about them.
I mean, I liked them more at the time. I think that too much TV has like just ripped it off in terms of like the singular title sequence done with some like fun CGI effect. Like pretty much every TV show does that now, so it's sort of lost the novelty of it. Not that Breaking Bad was the only one who did it, but I do think that it was part of the wave that popularized that. I think it made plenty of sense for this show because I don't know that you need turn and smile opening credits for Breaking Bad. I think that works just fine for the sort of low-key energy that the show often has.
God, I wish this had turn and smile opening credits, Derek.
Very funny. It would be very funny if they did.
I don't know why this sticks out to me, but every time I hear this opening tune, one year the Emmys did a thing with all of the best shows opening credits music where they would like recreate the credits with like practical props.
Oh,
and
wow.
this was of course just like two people carrying like symbols, like periodic table symbols next to each other, and then like a fog machine. But it was so memorable to me because I was like, why aren't I watching the show? This is kind of cool. I like this like twangy music.
That is hilarious. I want to look that up and watch it. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, I should have looked up what year. Well, obviously it was before we started watching it, so it's got to be one of the first 3 seasons when they swept the Emmys.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Well, as Derek said, it's 6 a.m. Walt looks exhausted. It looks like he has not slept at all. And then we leave the first of our one of 2 locations, and then we are in the second one, the meth lab. Walt and Jesse have arrived at the meth lab and are scrubbing the equipment clean. After they clean, Walt is checking the numbers and something isn't right.
These numbers, they just don't add up.
Told you, dude's totally boning us.
Nah, it's not that. It's our output. We're off. We're 0.14% off.
0.14, that's What does that mean?
It means we should be netting more than we're netting.
So how far off are we?
It's not negligible. Ballparking it, I'd say we're a quarter to a half a pound shy.
Walt assures Jesse that it couldn't happen by accident because he is in control, a theme that we might be exploring. Jesse leaves Walt to figure out the problem, and that's when the fly appears, landing on Walt's paper.
Yeah. I mean, already in these sort of opening sequences, you're sort of getting little bits and pieces of weird camera work, I think. Like, you know, the Walt and Jesse conversation is pretty normal.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you could see any episode starting with them having a conversation about, like, you know, are you stealing the meth? What's going on?
Right.
Kind of thing. But I think, yeah, it's the camera. I mean, this is backtracking a little bit. Like, you know, when you're in Walt's bedroom, you have the weird cut from between the different times. And I think you have like the smoke detector always in the background with a flashing red light at the beginning that plays into things at the very end of it. So already it's like things are framed a little bit weird where there's sort of like weird distractions in the background that you don't normally see, or like weird cuts. And then this, like, it's the Walt and Jesse stuff is mostly normal, except for the camera on Jesse's cleaning brush that it cuts to. That's like clearly mounted on the brush. It's so fucking wild.
Oh, Derek, it brought me so it made me think, David, you have money. Go buy a GoPro, put camera in a weird place, and just watch your own footage. I loved this. It's like, it's so fucking unnecessary, but that's what makes it cool.
Yeah, well, and I think that the GoPro thing, the POV shot, I don't know what the best thing, I don't know what you would call this shot. I'm sure there's a name for it. But when you have the camera mounted like a GoPro on an object, a lot of action movies do it where they mount it on the guns and then you watch someone with the sort of scope of a gun walking around. I think that it can be overused or not work if it's not used correctly. I do think you have to be very careful of not using it too much, because I think it needs to be something that is meant to look stark. And I don't know that there's like a metaphorical reason for why this shot is here, but I think if it's a signal to in a meta sense, this episode is going to look a little bit weirder than normal, but also B, I think a signal to just sort of like the weird headspace I think these two are going to be in for this episode. It does throw you a little bit off kilter when it cuts to that. And if Walt is like already kind of feeling probably a little bit overstressed and sleep deprived from his just regular insomnia, I think those sort of like off kilter sort of camera effects, I think do lend a lot for throwing you as an audience off kilter, just like he is.
Well, and I think that one of the schools of television making is, you know, you're making a motion picture, either the actor should be in motion or the camera should be in motion. And when you're stuck with a chamber piece where things are claustrophobic, you have to think about new and different ways to accomplish one of those two goals. And Johnson does that. And I think that if you choose to watch Rian Johnson's work and just look at the conceit of, is someone moving or is the camera moving, you will start to notice this very starkly, because a lot of his work does involve two people just talking. And if you just put a flat camera on, that's very boring. So throwing this in while Jesse is talking about some like hyenas licking each other's assholes thing, it's so smart because you're paying attention to something more than just the words.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fly lands on Walt's paper, and so Walt tries to attack it. You almost think he's going to get it when he first slaps the paper. But it doesn't work, and it very quickly becomes sort of like a Looney Tunes situation where he's like constantly trying to hit it, unsuccessful, disrupts equipment. Eventually he gets to a point where the fly is on the ceiling. He like throws his shoe up at the fly. It breaks a light and the shoe is stuck in the light. Like, again, it's like cartoonish shit that's happening. But I think, like, I don't know. I think because it's Walter White alone in a meth lab, because Jesse's already left at this point, and the silence of it, because he doesn't really say anything throughout this. So, like, you know, it's going to make it easy for me cutting clips into this podcast. There's going to be like none that you can cut in for half of this, because it's just silent action. And I think also the lack of music, there's like very, very almost no music in this whole episode, which I think helps, because if you had some, you know, twinkly slapstick music in it, it would definitely change the tone. But I think because it is just like one guy in this quiet room, not talking to anyone, doing this weird slapstick stuff, but in a way that's sort of like not unrealistic either. Like I've tried to do ridiculous things to kill a fly in my apartment before. I don't know. It ends up working, and it's like both funny, but also like doesn't feel over the top cartoony.
Right. Well, and
even though it's kind of Looney Tunes shit.
And I think sort of the act one conflict, for lack of a better word, is there even a fly in the lab? Because if we're in Walt's POV, it's not until Jesse comes back and then there's sort of like a discussion between them. Is there a fly? Because, sleep deprivation can make you hallucinate. And Walt's got some stress going on in his life. And so I don't know. I think the first time I watched this, I think I was kind of under the assumption that maybe this was something that was all in his head and he was just having a breakdown.
Well, and it's like I'm sure this probably would have actually weirdly, as cheap as this one was to make, obviously as a budget saving measure, this probably would be a really hard episode to make like decades ago, because I think they do have to CGI the fly a lot. And I think that's part of it too. In the early days, is that like part of the thing that drives you crazy when you are around a fly is that you can often hear it, but have a hard time seeing it, even though it's not invisible. It's not super tiny, but because it's just flying around so fast, like your eyes can't catch it. And so you kind of waffle at this point where like sometimes you'll see the CGI fly going across the screen, but other times you are only hearing sound and seeing him swat at nothing. And I think that combination again kind of keeps you a little bit uncertain and off kilter throughout it. Again, in the way that real life flies do, and also in a way that like you really couldn't do until you had the advent of CGI to be able to digitally add a fly on screen sometimes when you wanted to impactfully have that fly visually on screen.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Metasis struggles with this for their episode of The Fly, La Mosca, because you can tell that they've like laid a layer of film where a fly was like on a desk. Like,
no way.
It is made cheaper, which is, again, it works. The drama is there. But in particular, when Walt is on the catwalk, you're like, oh yeah, you just laid another image where there was a fly like on a thing that's not in the scene there, and it works.
That's really funny.
I'm really glad I watched it. Again, just wild that it is so close. I also think that the idea that there's something out there that sometimes you can't see, but you can feel and it's calling to you is again very, very Moby Dick. Just very Moby Dick.
Well, it's very Moby Dick. It's also a good metaphor for what Walt and Jesse are going through by working for this major crime lord. And even though they're theoretically in a great position for like having a beautiful, perfect lab, and all the equipment they'd ever need, all the supplies they'd ever need, and getting paid a lot for it, they still are constantly under this tension of sort of like, we don't know who's around. We don't know if the lab's bugged. We don't know if there's cameras around. We don't know who's watching us. Any day there could be someone who just shows up with a gun and shoots us and kills us.
Right.
For a variety of reason. Like, yeah, the invisible tension is always there.
Yeah.
Well, we mentioned it, this fucking catwalk sequence. So
I love this.
Because he's trying to get his shoe from the fucking light that's way high up. And I think it can't be overstated that this is like, a 2-story room. The ceilings are very, very high up. So he goes up to the second floor area where he's around a railing, trying to reach out the broom, can't get it, leans off of the catwalk. My anxiety is on high when he's got himself just wrapped around the railing. I'm like, my guy, just go shoeless. It's fine. The fly appears. He tries to swat it, of course. And as he swats it, he falls off of the catwalk, bangs his fucking whole ass body on whatever that tank is before falling onto the concrete ground.
Yeah.
What a fucking stunt. It looks so good. And the thing that I think is so stellar about it is when you're watching it, he falls, hits the tank, falls to the ground, and there's 0 cuts. Then the camera handheld like walks over to Walt, and it's a face, and it's a close-up on Bryan Cranston, which would make you believe, like, did Bryan Cranston do that fucking ridiculous stunt that could have absolutely killed him? But the reality is that it's just really fucking good filmmaking. It was a stunt double, as you would have expected. It was a stunt double that does amazing stunt. and the crew used photographs to get Bryan Cranston into the exact same precise position as the double. So when the camera approaches Walt, it is actually a cut. The cut is just so seamless, and they did it with such pinpoint accuracy that your eyes cannot tell that there's a cut and a completely different person lying on the ground. They mimicked the position and everything so perfectly with that. It's really incredible. That's like the amazing like one take shit where it's like it's not actually one take, but like it's so seamless.
It was incredible. And until I read about it, I was like, what is it's too early for like deep fake shit, like like cutting Bryan Cranston's head onto the stump. I truly could not figure out how they did this until I read about it. And even now, knowing it and like watching it so slowly, I can't see it.
You can't see the fucking cut. It's amazing.
Perfectly done. Perfectly done.
Yeah.
And then I mean, like, it can't get any better than this, but a fly then lands on prone Walt's glasses, and that is what takes us out of the act. It is beautiful, beautiful storytelling.
Yeah. It is beautiful storytelling. That is the most CGI this fly ever looks in this episode. This is very like, this was 2010 still. This is still, this episode does not feel like it was from a very long time ago, but then I'm like, that was 14 years ago, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or not 14 years ago. Oh my God, 10 years ago. No, yes, it was 14 years ago. Oh my God.
Yeah, 14 years ago. Just incredible. But I think for story purposes, I was more willing to forgive the CGI of this.
Oh, no, yeah. I'm not complaining about it. I think it's just funny because the show looks so good 99% of the time. And the fly doesn't even look bad.
No.
It's like, it is still good CGI. It's
apparent.
just good 2010 CGI. It's just, it was striking to me because it's sort of like, this show ages so incredibly well. It does not look like a, apparently, decade and a half old show. What the fuck? But it doesn't look like that at all. So whenever something is like that, it sticks out. But I think that speaks to how good this show looks otherwise, that it's sort of like, oh yeah, this wasn't a show that was made this year, was it?
Well, the next day, still at the meth lab, Jesse arrives back, but he can barely make it in the lab because Walt has pressurized the lab. Walt tells Jesse that the lab is contaminated by a fly, a single fly.
So exactly what kind of contaminant are we dealing with here?
Fly.
What do you mean? A fly, like what do you mean?
I mean, a fly. A housefly.
Like one fly? Singular? What'd it do?
It got into the lab and I'm trying to get it out, okay? Understand?
No. Man, not really. I can't say that I'm really following you here. Dude, you scared the shit out of me. I mean, we say it's contamination. I mean, I'm thinking like an Ebola leak or something.
Ebola?
Yeah, it's a disease on the Discovery Channel where all your intestines sort of just slip right out of your butt.
Thank you. I know what Ebola is.
Uh-huh.
Now tell me, what would a West African virus be doing in our lab?
So you're chasing around a fly, and in your world, I'm the idiot.
And Walt lays out the stakes to Jesse. Any pollutant, no matter how small, but he trails off before he can finish the sentence.
Yeah, the pressure stuff. Oh my God, that makes me so upset because Jesse walks in and his like ears are popping. Yeah. And he's like, this hurts so much. I hate that stuff. And I didn't know this, but someone on the internet pointed this out. I think I found this somebody just pointed this on TV Tropes. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually a really good point. People who do not like scuba diving would know this, but like if you are subjecting yourself to increased pressure for a very, very long time, you're at risk for nitrogen narcosis, which is a condition that causes you to experience and exhibit symptoms that are just like similar to drunkenness, essentially, just because of the weird pressure. I'm not exactly sure how it works. I don't know if it's like messing with your brain fluid or what, but it makes you almost seem like you're drunk. So Walt not only has sleep deprivation from his insomnia and then staying up all night in the lab again, but staying up in this pressurized lab. I don't know how high the pressure is, so it might not be a factor, but it is entirely possible that that's also fucking with his brain and being in this high pressure environment for like 12 hours.
That makes a lot of sense. To me, I just loved it because it was a way of raising stakes with a simple sound effect and some mime work from these two actors. Because
that's so true.
I mean, I believe watching it that door is hard to open and that there is whooshing air coming out. But it's all an act, and it's so well done to communicate that this has happened with very little money.
Yeah, I didn't think about that from the bottle episode perspective. That it's like it's an effect that's not really effect. I love that.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
It's like Leslie Stevens' ghost is here with us.
Hell yeah. And also there, like, I think really it might be outside of the Mockingbird song, though. I think the only other piece of music I think in this whole episode, I could be wrong, but I think the only other piece of music in this whole episode is just when Jesse is in his car looking at the cigarette that has Jane's lipstick still on it.
Yep.
And there's a music stinger there. And I don't think there's any other music after this throughout the rest of the episode.
There's not. We'll get some background noise later when Jesse leaves the lab again, but that's like the only other like diegetic, but it's not music. It's just noise.
Yeah, which is really wild.
Can we talk about Ebola just real quick? Just because I think
I love talking about Ebola.
It's just really funny. I think that everything Jesse brings that is just like I'm watching the Discovery Channel is so well characterized for him, because we're sort of meant to believe Jesse as this kind of hick, dumb character, but he has so much curiosity and interest about things that he would watch something about hyenas licking their asses, or that Ebola will make your intestines fall out of your butt. And I think in particular, I forgot about this until I saw that you put it in the notes, but like I forgot that 2014 was when we were like kind of worried about Ebola.
Yeah, like this was 2010. So it's funny because like, you know, Walt is like aghast that Jesse would be like, why would a you know, a virus from a completely different continent be in the US randomly now and contaminating our lab? What are you talking about? And then it's sort of like people were actually freaking the fuck out about a minor Ebola outbreak just 4 years after this episode aired.
Yeah.
And like news outlets were like fear mongering about it and shit. It's like, so it ends up being very funny in retrospect that he's like, that it's like, you're kind of wrong, Walt. That was actually a thing that people were genuinely scared of just a few years after this. You know, even if a lot of it I think was, you know, some racist fear mongering that was happening, to be honest.
Yeah.
But very wild to see that. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Anytime Jesse brings up stuff like that, I think that's the thing that makes him so interesting as a character, is that he's like, he's not stupid is the thing. He's been in a weird situation his whole life where he's never had the sort of circumstances or ability to like really engage his curiosity. But I think being curious in the way that he is and then retaining information that he is curious about and watches, I think speaks to his intellect.
Yeah.
That if he was in a different scenario, he probably would be, you know, he'd do fine in various other spaces in life if he had the opportunity to.
One, he's doing what smart, curious people do, which is share trivia that they learn with others. That is a mark of intelligent curiosity. I learned this thing, now I want to share it. I'm not just saying that because I'm a podcaster, but also
sure. Yeah.
I'm very smart and curious.
Yeah. And also, I think, speaking to Jesse's, I think this is a good episode 2.2 for Jesse being a pretty smart guy as much as Walt looks down on him, because he's the entire time pretty aware of like what's going on in the situation and is right? Like 99% of the time of like, Walt, you're being ridiculous. The fly is not the contaminant you think it is. Also, even if it is, we still need to cook. We still have to do our jobs. We've still got to make this fucking meth. And if we wait too long, the batch is going to be ruined, which doesn't fucking matter whether there's a fly or not. And I don't even know if there's a fly because you're clearly sleep deprived. So maybe you're making all of this up and hallucinating it. Like, he's voicing all of that, which is all the things that the audience are saying too. And like, he's 100% in the right and Walt is 100% in the wrong in this whole situation.
And again, I don't mean to keep like sophomore year English class, but like, this is Ahab and Starbuck. Like, Starbuck is trying to be reasonable with Ahab and bring him back to reality and like look at the big picture here. And it is the obsession that stops Ahab from being able to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do love that Jesse's like, you know, our customers wouldn't even care if there was like a little bit of fly in their mouth.
Look, I like making cherry products, but let's keep it real. All right, we make poison for people who don't care. All right, we probably have the most unpinky customers in the world.
No rationalizing. We'll find it any minute. Don't give up.
Oh my God, that's so true. He's like, we're making meth here, not space shuttles. And then he was like, we're making poison for people who don't care. And it's like, yes, amazing points. Very good points, actually.
Yeah, and he goes to like start cooking because that's their job. But Walt stops him, eventually swatting him with one of his makeshift fly swatters.
Oh my god, the comedy of Jesse just trying to like do his job behind Walt's back is just so silly.
Oh my god, that's right. It's the Scooby Doo sneaky. I'm going to open this vat of meth to add the alkaline. It is almost comical that he's like, oh, just make no noise here. It's just really good. Oh, right. Aaron Paul, I love you so much.
Yeah. But yeah, then they start hitting each other. Walt swats him, but then the fly is landing on Walt's head. So then Jesse's like, okay, I guess I can whap you really hard upside the head now with your fucking makeshift fly swatter that you got. I think he calls it a fly saber, which I think is really funny. So yeah. So that's the slapstick shit. They're literally hitting each other with sticks.
Seriously. Yeah. It is literally slapstick humor.
Yeah. Literally slapping with sticks.
And Jesse's like, I got it. Don't worry about it. Let's make meth. And he's like, where is it? Jesse goes, oh, it's over there. Walt finds it. And he goes, this is a raisin, which I also feel like if your lab is pristine, be mad about the raisin too. But that's where, again, I think the thinness of the veil of the subtext shows itself. Like, this isn't really about contamination. This is about control, and he can't control this goddamn fly.
Yeah. On the floor, Walt's kind of communicating again. They have to deal with the fly. There's no room for error. And Jesse's like, my guy, let's go out for some air. I think he recognizes, like, you've been in here literally all night, haven't you?
Yeah.
Something is wrong with you, buddy. And he's trying to be like a good friend and good, responsible coworker. And this is the right thing to do. Just be like, clear your head of this. Cause this is clearly becoming an obsession.
Get some air. Your answer to we're sliding headfirst into a massive crap.
Mr. White, all right, I understand that the fly is a serious thing now, all right? I'm on board. I'm just saying, maybe if we went and got some air, it would help us come up with a plan on how to catch it, then come back down here and subtract his ass.
But as he tries to get him out, Walt like tricks him and steals his keys and then locks him out of the lab, essentially.
Yeah, it's a really good bait and switch. He does the, oh, do you have your keys? And then Jesse shows them. Walt grabs them and locks them out of the lab.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jesse's locked out of the lab and he tries to find a way back in. He goes upstairs and asks for El Axo. Not the correct word, but I love that. And this is where we do get a little bit of freedom from the claustrophobia of the chamber piece, because the lab is big, but it is underground. We are meant to understand it to be underground.
Yeah.
So it always feels closed off, but being up here in this industrial laundry does feel so open. There's so much light and brightness.
There's
and other
extras
people.
there.
Yeah.
I think also the lab being like just steel and concrete also makes it feel like colder. And like, I remember like when there's a point when you see that there's like, oh, there's a little lounge with a couch back there. It almost felt out of place. Yeah. And it's sort of like, there shouldn't be anything comfortable in this space. Yeah. Like everything should be hard and cold here.
Walt, meanwhile, is stalking the fly and he's almost there. He's almost got it. But in that moment, Jesse turns off the power as a way to get back in, and Walt misses the fly. Outside, Jesse taunts him from the door, asking to be let back in.
I really enjoy whenever you see the lighting of like whenever power goes out and the power generators are just sort of like the red emergency lights. It's always so evocative. Like it's an easy thing to throw out in movies and TV, but every time it does, it works for me every time. It's just such a good, striking thing to look at.
It really is, and it almost turns this into a second set because it looks so different. Which smart thing to do if you're budget constrained is a red. That's all you're doing is putting red on your lights. Like it's not easy. It's a lot of work, but it's cheap.
Yeah. So Jesse comes back, power's back on. He's got a bunch of supplies that he's gone out and bought for the fly, like fly swatters, some like bug killer stuff that Walt's like, we don't want to contaminate things further with more chemicals or whatever. So they end up agreeing on fly glue strips because they're supposed to be non-toxic. And then we get another like comedy moment where it's sort of like, I sure hope we have enough. And then they cut to just like this giant industrial lab just littered with glue strips just hanging all over the place.
It's so funny.
Stupid. It's so funny.
And I can't for the life of me, I did pause it and look. I looked really hard. I couldn't figure out if these were like custom made props or if they just literally went and bought glue traps, because either would be very cheap. Those glue fly catchers are like 99 cents.
Right.
But it tells a story so easily and so quickly visually about Jesse going through this nightmare scenario of like unrolling all of these things and hanging them up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and you never have a real sense of how long they've actually been here either. Like at what point, what time, like has this happened really quickly, or is this like 3 o'clock in the afternoon now? You know, you never know. You never know exactly where they're at by the end of this. Yeah. Also this made me so fucking nervous because Jesse's like, I'm going to make you some coffee, Walt. And Walt actually is agreeable to that. I think he's finally giving into the fact that Jesse does have some good ideas, because the fly traps were a good idea. So he's like, all right, we can calm down for a second. I'll have some coffee. And Jesse from behind him starts mixing in sleeping pills. And I'm just like, he dumps a whole bunch of them in. And I'm like, my guy, break them up. What are you doing? They're not going to dissolve in the coffee. They apparently do. It seems to work out. They apparently are the most dissolvable sleeping pills on the face of this planet. Because Walt never Walt never notices that he's been drugged. But I'm like, he's dumping like 5 of them, and there's just whole gigantic pills.
Yeah, they're like horse
in there.
pills. Yeah.
And he just like lightly stirs it and hands it immediately to Walt. And I'm like, you didn't even give it time to dissolve. What are you doing, man? He's just going to drink it. It's just going to be like a clump of chalky dust in there.
Well, and it's interesting because we almost get this moment from Walt of looking like something's not right. But it's just the fly of it all. It's just the other stress of it all.
Yeah.
And he just quietly says thank you to Jesse. It's so well done. A moment of tension.
And I would like to believe that like on any given day, Walt probably would have noticed that it like tasted weird. He was tasting like extra gunk in it, but he's just so sleep deprived, and has that like nitrogen narcosis or whatever it was called. And moreover is just so obsessed and focused in on this fly thing that is like a representation of everything that is like rotting in his soul that he can't even notice those details.
Yeah. This is where Walt and Jesse have their big heart to heart. They're talking about everything. Jesse shares a story. Walt's like, what's the point? Jesse's point of the story is about a family member who wasn't well.
My aunt, she didn't believe it. I mean, she kept insisting she could still hear the thing. And you could not tell her any different. I mean, she started keeping an old umbrella, by her chair. Man, she would just bang on the floor and yell at it, even gave it a name. It was, Scrabble. Yeah, that was it. Scrabble, just knock it off, bang, bang, bang. Got like that toward the end. Got obsessive about stuff. Just got mad about stuff. We didn't know what was up. It wasn't like her to be that way. But it turned out that the cancer had spread to her brain, and that was why.
And it sort of triggers Walt into saying, I'm still in remission, but I missed my perfect moment to die.
Yeah. The possum story is really good because it really, I think it's built really well and it's told really well. Because sounds like it's another one of Jesse's just like, here's a fun little thing that happened to me that has nothing to do with anything. But the reality is just sort of like, I had a family member who like was clearly not well, hallucinating there was a possum.
Yeah.
Subtext being just like you're hallucinating there's a fly right now and obsessed with it. And then we realized it was because of cancer metastasizing in her brain. And it's like, it's again, another point in Jesse's favor of being smart, because it's like, he's hypothesizing, he's theorizing, and he's not only coming up with a similar story to relate to Walt, it's sort of like, he's not saying that that's what he's saying because Walt would just reject it if Jesse was sort of like, do you have brain cancer, man?
Right.
Like, if Jesse was dumb, that's what he would do. But the fact that he's sort of like, I'm going to tell you this is what's going on in my head and how I can relate to what you're going through. And then that maybe that can get through to you. And the only reason it doesn't work is because Walt did literally just go to the doctor who told him that he's still in remission.
Well, and it's beautifully written because some of the best writing is simple writing, and there is a 3 narrative that we all look to in stories. So he's already told one story about the hyenas. He's told a second story about Ebola. Here's the third story, but that's the one that's different. And it's very smart and economical writing.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is when it digs into like what Walt's going through and you know, why this fly is like, why it's something that is just like struck a chord with him.
None of this makes any sense if I didn't have enough. But it had to be before she found out. Skylar. It had to be before that.
Perfect moment. For what? To drop dead? What, you saying you want to die?
I'm saying I've lived too long. You want them to actually miss you, you know? You want their memories of you to be... But she just won't. She just won't understand. I mean, no matter how well I explain it, these days she just has this... I mean, I truly believe there exists some combination of words. There must exist certain words in a certain specific order that would explain all of this. But with her, I just can't ever seem to find them.
Mrs. White, how about you just sit down?
Because really what's been going on in his head this whole time is that like he realizes that, you know, he had this whole plan. The whole premise of the show was that I'm going to give my family financial security after I die. But then he didn't die. And in fact, the cancer not only didn't kill him, but he's now in remission and seems like he's going to be fine and live for much longer. And now it's sort of like he's suddenly like missed his, like suddenly his, you know, wonderful little scenario is sort of like shattered because it's sort of like, well, why am I still doing this now? You know? And he's sort of caught in this loop of just sort of like, I kind of missed my window where I could justifiably with a clean conscience, just say this was the end of my story. The story is continuing to go and I'm still doing this and continuing to sort of like ruin my life and the lives of my family around me. And the farther that I go into it, the farther away I am from that justification of why I was going into a life of crime to begin with. He talks about how he's lived too long and that Skylar just won't understand and he just can't find the right words at the right time to say them, which I think is really important information to get that he's feeling this way because it's like, if you're watching the show, like, you know that it's sort of like this is part of a core character flaw that he has this such deep arrogance and like weird like inferiority and superiority complex about him that he feels the need to, that he has to prove himself and not only, you know, prove that he can be the financial breadwinner for his family, but also prove that he can be the fucking king of the crime underworld, that he's that good enough for it. That sort of ends up superseding any benefit to his family at the end of the day. But the fact that he recognizes that, I think is such an important bit of information that it's like, you aren't a fucking sociopath. You know what you're doing is wrong. And that's what's compelling is that he doesn't really know how to get out of it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And when all this regret seems to flood him all of a sudden, he realizes, he puts his finger on when that moment was. And it was the night that Jane died. And man, Aaron Paul's face just like dissolves at the thought of Jane and Walt speaking her name. And he remembers that Skylar was singing to their new baby. And that's the lullaby from the beginning. And he heard it on the baby monitor and he thought, I should go be with them. But instead he went and did this job. And at the end of that night, he went to a bar and he met a stranger who turned out to be Jane's father, Donald.
I sit down and this stranger, he engages me in conversation. He's a complete stranger. But he turns out to be Jane's father, Donald Margolis.
What are you talking about?
Of course, I didn't know it at the time. I mean, he was just some guy in a bar. And I didn't put it together until after the crash when he was all over the news.
Jane's dad.
Think of the odds. Once I tried to calculate them, but they're astronomical. I mean, think of the odds of me going in, sitting down that night in that bar next to that man.
Who told him to never give up on family. And it's too much all at once. It is no wonder this guy's going through it, because this is trauma upon trauma upon trauma.
Yeah, well, I think it's a way that's, I think an interesting thing about Breaking Bad is that it's like, for all like the gritty realism of the show, often it is also kind of this weirdly like fantastical show in the way that so many wild coincidences always seem to line up in this like weird sort of like grand universal plan kind of way. Like all the plane crash stuff in like season 2 that started and that, that set up a lot of this season, it's like bizarre stuff that like in real life, all of it wouldn't happen to one person. But this is sort of like, but what if it did?
What if it did?
And so all of this being like his whole issue with his family and his tied into his life as crime and being in remission, all of that's a lot at once anyway, but then tying into like, I met the father of the girl you were dating that I secretly watched and let die, but haven't told you that bit of information, which is another secret that I'm also carrying. Like, that's a ridiculous confluation of events, not to mention that her dad is the one who like caused the plane crash. So it's like, it's too much fucking weird fate shit happening. That like, again, I think in a worse show would just be like, this is so contrived, this is all happening. But in this show, it's sort of like getting like, it's like how those events would weigh on a character who was at the center of those stories. I think it like they're kind of playing with that, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And I think to like borrow another character from a different series, like there is some Dr. Melfi going on here. Like Jesse is drawing this out like a therapist would, maybe not trained or not intentionally, but that's how Walt is making these connections, which I think is a huge strength for this model of an episode and the delivery that you get between these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But all of the reflecting and everything and the way that it's just, I mean, again, it's just a acting tour de force, of all of this. Just really, they're really great in all of this.
Well, the tenderness is broken by that buzzing of a fly, which knocks Walt out of his trance. He sits down, exhausted and defeated by the fly. Sorry, can I go back to the conversation? I'm so sorry.
No, please.
I really wanted to do this because I think the thing that like nailed the Moby Dick for me is that there is a moment where Ahab is talking to Starbuck and says, man, I fucked up. I've been chasing this whale for 40 years. I should just be home with my wife. And
ooh, yeah,
it was that moment that I was like, oh God, wow, we're really there. And
that's such a good point.
Yeah.
And I think speaking to how I still shocks me that I never made the connection of like the lullaby at the beginning to like him referencing the perfect night to have just died and did everything, with it being the night that she was singing that lullaby and he was just watching TV in the other room. I think that speaks to it. That's sort of the center for, as many people will fucking hate Skylar White or whatever, like she is such a core of this show because she is the representation of what Walt has been doing from the beginning, and like the sort of litmus test of like where his relationship with Skylar is at any given time is like, tangential, is directly paralleling how deep he's fallen, and the farther away that he gets from his relationship with Skylar, the worse off that he is, and how, the harder that it will be for him to ever go back. And I think this episode is him sort of recognizing that it's sort of like, I think I've crossed that threshold now, and I don't know that I can ever go back, and the fly is the representation of just sort of like the thing that he's constantly chasing that he'll never go back from. And it's sort of like the sunk cost fallacy thing. It's sort of like, I spent all night chasing this fly. I can't stop now.
Right.
Like then the whole thing would be a waste of time. The same thing with Skylar. I've ruined so many relationships and ruined so many parts of my life pursuing this crime thing that I can't stop now, even if I would love to just be able to just go back to my wife now, but it's too late. I've crossed that threshold. I've sunk too much into this to turn back now.
I've got to see it through. But he now is tired. Well, first of all, we're seeing him be tired. Probably
Yeah.
a little bit sleeping pill related. So
Sure.
I think that's where, when he sits down and is exhausted and seems so defeated by the fly, they can see it up on the ventilation, but they just can't reach it. And he seems ready to give up. Maybe just on the fly, maybe on everything. Like it is a little depressed.
A line that stuck out to me was, he's not coming down. He's staying up there forever. And I feel like it's like Walt recognizing that it's just like, Walt isn't dying anytime soon. He is kind of stuck in this forever.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Ooh, that's so
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
Derek. Oh God, that's so good.
yeah.
But the determination has finally reached Jesse. Jesse is like, he's ready to kill this fly. He takes 2 rolling tables, puts them together, puts a ladder on top of it. This is my anxiety at peak, because you know how I feel about ladders, Derek, because he's going to the very top, which is not a step that you're meant to step on. And Walt is holding on to it, but he is fading fast. And I think that increases the tension more and more. Oh,
You're just, because you've already had one big stunt fall in this episode. You're waiting for Jesse Pinkman's stunt double to get his due too.
And as Walt is losing consciousness, he says up to Jesse, "I'm sorry about Jane." And that is when I feel like we are so close to getting the truth about that, and it doesn't come, which I think you mentioned leaves us feeling tense at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that lack of catharsis. And it's like a very long time before that ever gets revealed too.
Yeah.
So like you always will have that tension. It's really wild.
And Walt
honestly, good on them for waiting such a long time to ever deploy that too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and you've got to think you've been hanging on to that. That's been a card that you've been holding in your sleeve as a writer. This is a great way to utilize it.
Yeah.
Walt finally tells Jesse, "Let it go. Come back down."
The first time that Walt has let go of anything in this like entire series.
It's a pretty big moment. It's a big moment between the two of them. Yeah. And I think we get a little bit more payoff of it at the end.
Yeah. Jesse gets down. He mercifully does not fall as much as we think he's going to. But then the fly appears. Jesse swats with a newspaper and he kills it. He just gets it. It's almost like kind of anticlimactic. It's sort of like, it's there. All right, it's dead. Like, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's anticlimactic. They do a whole slow-mo CGI fly falling to the ground shot. But like his actual act of killing it in that moment wasn't anything ingenious. He just saw it and hit it and just finally got it. You know?
He's using the most mundane tool to kill a fly that has ever existed in the history of newspapers, man and flies, which is a wadded up newspaper. Like it's not the fly swatter. It's not the fly saber. It's nothing special. And I love the mundanity at the end of this.
Yeah. He goes to celebrate. Walt is asleep, all the sleeping pills, sleep deprivation and everything. So it's really sweet that Jesse actually like carries him over to the couch and tucks him in, shuts the door, does the entire job himself. He makes the entire batch all by himself.
Yeah.
Which then it's sort of like, well, why did you know what? Maybe you could just do this job all on your own. Why do you even need Walt, buddy?
I wonder if that'll be a plot we look at later in the series. We're back outside. They're done for the day. Walt goes to head home, but before he leaves, he tells Jesse,
"That's half a pound. I said you're off by. Now, I'm not accusing you, but if, you understand? And if they ever found out."
I didn't take shit.
I'm just saying that I won't be able to protect you.
Who's asking you to?
but it is a Walt who has let go a little bit. It's very, very impactful for me.
It is, but it's also frustrating, I think, in a way, because it's like, I know he's being honest with Jesse, and he does try to make it clear that it's not an accusation, but it still is showing that he doesn't 100% trust Jesse.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, after everything that just went through and everything Jesse did for him, like the sleeping pill thing, it wasn't just pure selfishness. I think by that point, if Jesse had done that at the beginning of the episode, it would be just like, oh yeah, he's trying to get him out of the way so he can cook. Right. By this point in the episode, he is also all in on killing the fly.
Yeah.
He's trying to give Walt the sleeping pills because he knows that Walt needs that, and is trying to give him the gift of sleep so then Jesse can do the job for him. So the fact that Jesse did this whole episode, we see Jesse falling in line with Walt's with Walt's mindset and just doing all of this to help him because he knows it will help him get through this shit and help them do their jobs better. And still, despite all of that, Walt's just like completely does not let that get through at all. And it's just sort of like, yeah, but I know that you're still capable of stealing meth because you're a dumb piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is. I mean, that's the thing is he is stealing meth. So like,
sure.
His concern is, I read the concern here at the end of the episode, much different than the beginning of the episode being like, we're off 0.14%. That felt very Walt. I've got to be in control. I've got to know what it all is. This is, I'm worried about you because of Gus Fring.
That's fair. That is a more charitable, because you're right. I mean, look, Walt's not wrong. It's just more like, God, I wish that you would ever trust this guy, and maybe he wouldn't steal meth if you ever trusted him 100%, and he never does.
That's true.
Throughout the whole show. But you're right. It is still a big move for Walt emotionally to even voice this coming from a place of comfort and care, rather than just being like shitty to this guy.
Right.
I think that is fair.
Yeah. And I think it drives the rest of season 3, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's a very, very good point. I need to rewatch this show.
Oh, it's
honestly.
so good, Derek.
Yeah, I'm excited to rewatch it one day. But yeah, we cut to Walt's house. It's just a little addendum. He's finally asleep, but of course, wakes up to the sound of a fly buzzing. It is still haunting him, even though they killed the representation, the one physical representation in the lab of, the sort of sense of regret and guilt and like longing and like a death wish that Walt has. It hasn't killed it in his soul, and that guilt is still there. That sense of like longing is still there. That sense of unease is still there. That sense of tension is still there. The fly is still buzzing, and I think when you see it on the smoke alarm blinking, which again, you saw that smoke alarm kind of as a distraction in the background at the very beginning of the episode. It's also, they're utilizing that again as sort of like a point of focus of like, that is kind of scary, honestly. When you see the flashing light with the silhouette of the fly on it, it's a frightening image that I think that does unsettle you.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant bookend of this episode to put the flashing light as really the unifier between start and finish. And I was scared by the fly. I wasn't scared that it was like coming to get me, but it's tense. It's just very tense to have that be the end of the episode. And that's great TV. That's the reation that I was excited that Netflix was like, you want to watch that next episode instantly? Also, calm down, Netflix. But I did want to watch the next episode.
Right. That's the thing that makes me so. I understand because people are fucking stupid, but it does make me a little bit confused about when people are sort of like, this episode just does fucking nothing. It's sort of like, how do you end this episode and not leave it off immediately just so fucking ready to see what is going to happen with them next? Like that's the point of like serialized TV. Not the point, but that's a point in the favor of serialized TV. That's why you like serialized TV, is that every episode makes you want to continue the story to the next one. And yeah, this one doesn't have fucking Gus Fring like offing anyone or whatever. It doesn't expose any big secrets, I guess, dramatically, but like it still leaves you with a better understanding of these characters that makes you feel ready and prepared to continue on with the story with a much more firm ground of where they're at mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
That I think end up upping the stakes for when things do come to a head, because the guilt that they're feeling and the regret that they're feeling and the sort of emotionally fractured relationship that Jesse and Walt have, but also the weird sense of care that they still have for each other, and is it one-sided or not? Like all of that like feeds into and sets you up for what's going to be happening. And I think if you eliminated this episode from this season, I don't think the emotional oomph of the latter half of the season would be there, because you didn't have this level setting and this sort of foundation and this preparation for exactly where they're at.
Yeah, I think it'd be boring. I think that skipping this episode would be like watching a supercut of Friday the 13th that's just the murders. Like, it's not interesting.
Yeah.
It's not interesting. This episode is the chase. This is the interesting part of the horror movie. The catharsis, the thrill, the conflict comes after the chase. And you can't have the high highs if you don't experience this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great episode. People on the internet are stupid. So those are fucking rules. definitely one of the best of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
One of the
totally
most important
agree.
ones of the show, I
Had
would argue too.
So much fun talking about this one.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have any other thoughts, I guess we can just start wrapping stuff up.
I love the opportunity to watch it again, Derek. I don't know that we'll be able to revisit Breaking Bad. I don't
know if
think
there's
this
any other
was-
episodes that would fit as a gimmicky one.
I think this
really.
was
Is
it
the
for
one-
us.
The one where they're in the however many days out or in the RV in the desert, does that kind of count or not? I don't really remember. It's been a long time since I watched
they're kind of stranded. It's bottle-ish, maybe. I'll rewatch it and think about it.
But also, there's a million other TV shows out there that we could do. So
I mean,
like, maybe we
listen,
just
if
can't
you
revisit
would like to write and produce a Breaking Bad musical, Vince Gilligan, we will cover it on Gimmicks.
And you know what? I'm sure there's Better Call Saul episodes that we could probably
There
do
are.
too, actually.
That is
so
true.
we can still revisit the universe,
Yeah.
actually. So we'll put a pin in that for the future and talk about that at some point. But if you want to find more from David and I, David, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can find me online, Twitter, Instagram as Dmuma. There's a 22 at the end for Twitter. We'd love to have you follow me for my takes on whatever Vulture article is coming out about bottle episodes or Lost or whatever. I do a couple other shows here on Glitterjaw. One is called Are You My Mother? I had Derek on last month to talk about Terminator. I guess it was earlier this month to talk about the Sarah Connor from the series Terminator, which was a blast. Had so much fun doing that.
So fun.
And then my other podcast, Fear Coded, we are celebrating Halloween all month long. So next week, Derek will be joining Marilee, Tyler, and I to talk Scream and just how queer that movie was in the horror genre.
Nice. Yes. Very, very fun. I'm just popping up everywhere, I guess.
You really are.
If you want to find me on other podcasts as well, first you can follow me most places at Derek B. Gale. And then the other podcasts I do are Walloping Web Snappers, which I do with my co-host Doug, where we look at every Spider-Man cartoon ever made. And then Doug and I also do Screonk, which is a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. And then with my friend Tommy, we do Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where we look at the Simpsons tie-in video games chronologically, as well as pop culture history and Simpsons history and video game history.
Gimmicks, of course, is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you're looking for other queer media podcasts, you can check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com, including a new show that'll start next month called The Q Division.
Yes, and if you want to support this show by giving us a little tip, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/gimmicspod. You can also follow us on gimmicspod on Twitter and Instagram, and email us your questions, feedback, and corrections to gimmicspodcast@gmail.com. Of course, rate, review, subscribe on all your podcast platforms. And until next time, friends, keep being weird.
I am the one who knocks.